I'm Bob Hyatt, a professor at UCSF, and one of the PIs of the Upstream Center. And I want to introduce our team here. David Rakoff is also a professor of epidemiology and population health at Stanford, and one of the other PIs of the project. Leslie Sepp is executive director of the program that we've got here, and she's been a great help in getting things going and kept going. And then Elise Adams, a professor at Stanford as well. And finally, Eileen Barnaby, who's a great program support person as well. So that's us who are part of the Upstream Center. And what we want to do today in this short presentation is introduce you to this project, the Upstream Center, and what the pilot projects are about, the opportunity, and then to answer any questions. Pretty simple. We think this is a very unique project. We're so happy that you're interested in hearing more about it. And we're trying to encourage people to apply for these pilot projects, which are pretty generous, $75,000 for a year. And in these times when money is uncertain, it's a good opportunity. So about the center. So this is about cancer. It's a leading cause of mortality along with cardiovascular disease, as most of you know. And the burden, that is the incidence and mortality and survival for cancer, is the highest in areas that are described as persistent poverty areas, geographic areas that are over a period of 3 decades remain in persistent poverty as defined by the federal government. And our center, which is called the Upstream Research Center, tries to address this difficult problem at a population level, where we're trying to identify and do something about the social context, the social drivers, the social determinants of cancer in these areas, so-called causes of the causes. So we want to do research which tries to get at upstream etiologic factors which influence conditions and behavior, and then the biology that leads to cancer. Next slide. That'll be David. David, take it away.
So our focus has been on persistent poverty areas around the Bay Area. One of the unique things about this funding opportunity was not just sort of general, use a data source, find out what the effects are, but really speaking to particular places and the unique things in particular places. So keep this in mind when you're thinking about your pilot projects. They can actually be a little bit smaller scale. That's okay. And actually, we encourage you to think about solutions for particular places or particular people who are living in areas with persistent poverty. This just shows some overlap. Some of the areas just in red here are areas of persistent poverty that are around here, or Central Valley. These are the catchment areas of the 3 cancer centers that are part of this center: UC Davis, UCSF, and Stanford. And then just showing the overlays of quartiles of colorectal cancer screening with some of these persistent poverty areas. Next slide. So the focus of our center is on prevention. So this is quite different than a lot of what NCI has funded in terms of social determinants of health. It's one of the unique aspects of our proposal. It doesn't mean that we don't fund any pilots on other aspects. We have focused, as long as they're sort of on actionable social determinants of health, we have looked for really interesting, compelling projects on different parts of this continuum. But sort of the major projects that are driving the 2 kind of big funded projects are on prevention. So we're particularly interested in things there, but I will say, are open to pilot projects that are looking at social determinants of health across this continuum. Next slide. So, when you're thinking about pilot projects, one of the exciting things about this center is hopefully being more than the sum of its parts. So we're looking, I think you all by listening to what we have to say here, probably have sort of an advantage in thinking about it either by recording, listening by recording, or being here in person. So what we're looking for are things that are closely related and kind of could be synergistic with these two projects that I'll talk about, the two main projects, but that are sort of unique or a little bit different from what these are, but they can bring things together a little more. So the first project is about guaranteed income programs. So it's directly addressing poverty through increasing income to households. And we partnered with the state of California and a few other organizations to do an evaluation of colorectal cancer risk factors and how those risk factors change after households receive a certain amount of money every month. And so this is actually a true experiment, and that most of these are randomized exposures, which is one of the other sort of hallmarks of, I think, our center, and something actually that's increasingly being focused on at NIH now in terms of social determinants of health. So I had a chance last week to hear the director speaking and spoke with him again, and he reiterated the interests of NIH in social determinants of health, but said again that they're particularly interested in sort of actionable interventions. And so this is very much an actionable intervention. It's something you can do. It's reducing poverty. And then we're looking at the sort of health effects of that. So that's the first project on guaranteed income. Next slide. The next is on the earned income tax credit. So this is not experimental, but quasi-experimental. We are leveraging changes in the eligibility of the EITC for families in California over the last 10 years or so, and using that to look at changes in colorectal cancer risk factors. Next slide. Next, maybe a little delay. Next slide. Here we go. So as part of this, you may be wondering, wow, how would you actually in a 5-year grant period, or for that matter, a 20-year grant period, actually look at how income changes would change colorectal cancer incidence or mortality? Of course, you can't. The etiologic period is sort of too long. So what we're doing, we also have a mathematical modeling core, methods core, which I direct with Dr. Hyatt. And we're using a model to predict based on risk factor distributions and changes we've seen in these interventions, what the projected risks of colorectal cancer incidence are in the future. So we're building a conceptual model, and then we'll have a mathematical model. This is, we're following a similar pattern to what we did before for breast cancer, with the Paradigm project that I also worked on with Dr. Hyatt, starting maybe, 10 years ago or something. So this is the conceptual model, and we look at a lot of different risk factors, how they affect breast cancer incidence, and then we have a mathematical model behind this that can project it. So we're particularly interested, I would say, in new types of studies that will identify coefficients between a particular risk factor and colorectal cancer incidence. Particularly in sort of the social and physical domains, where there's just a lot less evidence that's out there. We'd also be interested in projects that are involved in mathematical modeling, because that effort is underway. It's a very collaborative approach, working with some MISCAN folks, other folks. So I think another kind of very synergistic or complementary type of pilot project would be anything to do with mathematical modeling, especially if it relates to colorectal cancer. Next slide. Is this turning it over to someone else now, I think?
I think this goes back to me.
Correct.
All right.
So the Upstream Research Center is the what we're calling the coordinated effort of the 3 institutions, UCSF, UC Davis, Stanford, in working in this area. What we're interested in is the social drivers or social determinants of cancer. And as David just explained, with a focus on income inequality, but other types of social drivers as well. Social drivers are things like, housing or food insecurity, transportation problems, structural racism, things that are part of the culture, the society that we live in, that are known to be associated with unhealthy living and unhealthy opportunities, and including cancer. So David just explained that we're looking at two income policies, the guaranteed basic income and the earned income tax credit. These pilots don't have to relate directly to those two, but they provide a model or a sort of a setting against which to develop other pilots. The goal of a pilot program is to really begin innovative and sustained strategies that can alleviate persistent poverty. This is unusual, as Dr. Rakoff has mentioned, because it gives you, if you're interested in applying for these pilots, a chance to sort of break out of your usual model of doing research and thinking about how to study these factors that are in the social environment that can eventually come to affect cancer outcomes. Next slide. So they can serve, these pilots can serve to expand the research support for other studies with external peer-reviewed grants. They produce pieces of evidence or elements of the evidence framework that enhances the work of the research center, and they facilitate partnerships with new investigators and community partners. This is the fourth year we've done this, and we've had wonderful success so far with the awardees for the pilot studies that we have. And success has been measured by not only the work that they're doing, but by the collaborative nature of the work, and by our having an opportunity to bring new people into this field. And that's one of our goals. Next slide. So Elise, would you take it over from this point?
Happy to do so. Thanks so much, Bob, and thanks, David. So the funding period, it's for 1 year. It goes May 2026 through April 30th, 2027, and it's up to $75,000 in direct costs. 3 awards will be made this year, and at least one will support an intervention study. Carry forward awards cannot be supported, and we really have to emphasize this quite heavily in that it's such a short period of time. So we really encourage, we're going to talk about IRB approval in a minute, but early IRB approval, but also just sort of awareness about budget and spending. It does require a lot to be agile on your feet and ready to go. And certainly we have a fantastic group of people and team that can help you to do that, but just keep that in mind with these awards. The application timeline is November of this year, and they'll be due at 5 p.m. So that's okay. I think I already emphasized the IRB. We'll talk about IRB more later on. So we're really excited about this project because it's really, quite frankly, like no other that I've ever seen in a pilot award, to be able to do real world policy relevant research with world quality researchers, right? And to do something that is funded by NIH and fully supported is just an incredible opportunity. So here are some examples of some of the things that you could think about. Thinking about structural factors and how they influence biological mechanisms in order to inform the development of surrogate endpoints, developing and evaluating innovative community-based interventions. We're really big believers in community engagement. We have our own CAB, our Community Advisory Board, that is just incredibly knowledgeable and helpful of our awardees. And you can also think about methods development, developing new methods to evaluate the dissemination impact of specific policies, including earned income tax credit on cancer incidence and mortality. Next slide. So here's some required elements. This is the dry stuff, so hang in there with us. So the projects must describe proposed research that's relevant to structural and social determinants experienced in persistent poverty areas. And all of those words are intentional, and we expect to see them in all of your applications. Of particular interest or focus in counties that are part of the Stanford, UC Davis, and UC San Francisco catchment areas. Again, as Bob said, we have some overlap, some non-overlapping counties, but those are the sort of the communities we're talking about. And there's a map, available on our website where you can go and specifically look at which counties we're talking about. Proposals related to the Earned Income Tax Credit, the evaluation of California Guaranteed Income Project, which is parent one of the parent grant, are very welcome. But we do ask that you contact us first before submitting an application based on that, so that we can make sure that you have a chance to talk with the PIs and the collaborators and to identify a proposal that makes sense for that particular project. Pilots are expected to have a deliverable at the end. It could be a presentation. A publication would be fantastic, but we realize those take a little longer. A poster would be fantastic, as well as a report of preliminary results. Because this project is very much, I don't know how to put this, David, but NCI is watching very closely how we do things, and they really have to approve the things we do along the way. And so for that reason, not only having deliverables, but we will be asking for information on how the project is going. So just to expect that if you do get an award, that we'll be asking for that. Next slide, please. So we will give preference to applications that are focused on addressing the needs of rural communities within persistent poverty areas. So not all persistent poverty areas are rural. Sometimes they're urban areas. In this case, we're really focusing on those rural areas because they tend to be under-resourced and often don't have as robust either research resources or clinical care resources as other areas. And again, within our catchment areas or communities that we serve. You can do preparations for interventional studies. Interventional studies themselves, as you know, take some time to prepare. And so this is a great way if you're thinking about submitting an R1 or something for an interventional study. This is a fantastic way to really get started and develop some preliminary studies to help you down the road. And we're really big on team science here. So collaborations between 2 or more Upstream Research Center institutional partners, we really encourage that. And we're also happy to help do some matchmaking. So if you don't know someone at UC Davis or UCSF, we're always happy to help try to make those connections. Next slide. So the eligibility criteria, as you'll see on the application, is that you do have to have a PI who is a Stanford, UC Davis, or UCSF PI, faculty member, with PI eligibility, and postdoctoral scholars are also welcome from these institutions. And we could talk more one-on-one if you have questions about what that means, PI eligibility. Postdoc applications are required to have at least 1 year remaining. So if you're a postdoc, just make sure you have one year left. And you still have to work with a PI eligible faculty member. And so we can work with you to make sure that you're in compliance with those eligibility criteria. Community partners or faculty can serve as project leaders. We really encourage that. We want to see collaborations with community partners, but for administrative purposes, primarily a faculty member has to be co-principal investigator. This will save all of us time. So it's not that we don't appreciate other PIs. It's just the nature of the beast. It's the institutions that we work with. We do need a co-PI who's a faculty member, but again, we can help you navigate that process. IRB approval is critically important, as I stated below. We can't give out the funding until the IRB is approved. So it's really, really important to go ahead and submit those applications early for IRB. So if there is back and forth, you can have all of that sorted before the funds drop. And it's, again, IRB approval is required before funds can be dispersed and are generally not a valid rationale for no cost extension requests. So in other words, the IRB didn't get back to me. It's not going to cut it in terms of needing more time. We really do have to sort of be proactive with respect to the IRB. And again, this is just our funder requires this. And so we have to require it of you, and we can help you through this process. Next slide, please. So I think this is still me. Evaluation criteria. We're looking for the quality of the applications. We have received really outstanding applications. What I would say is please, please, please read the RFA closely. And I understand, we get it. Everyone has to apply to a number of different pilot opportunities, and sometimes there's a lot of overlap. We get that. But please read the instructions carefully because of the nature of the funding here. We really are looking for applications that are highly responsive to the RFP. And if you're just sort of sending us something because you've sent it to somewhere else, it's probably not going to fly. So just go ahead and read that carefully, make sure that we are clear on the communities we're talking about, the topics we're talking about, etc. And that includes relevance to the mission of the center. That's also available both on the application materials as well as on the website. The investigators, making sure that the investigators have the skills and knowledge, et cetera, as a team to do to be successful. There is a required community engagement component, so thinking about that carefully. And again, we're happy to talk with you about community engagement before you apply and what that looks like and what it means. And then the scope, it has to be feasible to do in the year. That's just sort of the realities. And so as you're thinking about, sort of your plans about how you want to do things, really think about what's doable within the year, and then come talk to us about that as well. Additional evaluation criteria include working with community partners, responsiveness and relevance to community partner priorities. So understanding that you have community partners in place and that they have an idea of what they'd like you to focus on, and that the application is responsive to that. That there's an element of capacity building. There's something else we'd love to see. This is not necessarily a requirement in the sense that we know this is just the beginning sometimes of a relationship, but having an eye towards how can this help the community as well as help the researcher is critically important, and having a strong letter of support from that community partner. And again, we have a very strong community engagement core, and we can help you identify partners as well. Next slide. The standard application requirements and specific aims research plan. We do have this cancer center resource use. Each of the cancer centers have phenomenal resources that are available to researchers. We strongly recommend that you check those out regardless, because they're really great resources for folks. They're on a number of different lines, but we do want to hear about that. Again, it's the nature of this particular funding mechanism. You're going to have some sort of work plan, timeline, and then information on the program leads as well. You'll need a statement of relevance to the overall aims of the Upstream Center. This just circles back to what I talked about in terms of making sure you read the RFP carefully and that you're responsive to that. You'll have to have a separate community engagement plan. Again, we're happy to help with that. If you haven't done one of those before, letters of support from relevant parties. And then, of course, your protection of human subjects documents. You will need city training and IRB approval prior to funding. So making sure that your training's up to date, your collaborators' training's up to date, and that you have those documents ready to go, and you've submitted your IRB application. It's really highly advised.